and welcome back to the Simplifiers Podcast, where we take topics in business and in life and simplify them. And friends, go ahead and raise your hand right now if you are listening to this podcast on your phone, but you are multitasking and flipping through, Instagram, Facebook, doing the mindless death scroll. There is no shame. Go ahead, raise your hand. It's all right. Well, that's the truth, right? Nowadays, 2019, at the time of recording, it seems like social media is a must-have, can't live without thing in our lives. Can I get an amen? But the truth is it? And that's who I want to talk to today and really break this subject down and simplify it. My special guest today is Leonie Dawson, and she's an internationally best-selling author of the 2019 My Shining Year Goals workbooks, which are used, you guys, by more than 350,000 people around the world. Leonie is a serial creative entrepreneur, and she's built a multi-million-dollar company in 10 hours a week of work so she can really focus on her family. She lives on an acreage in the Sunshine Coast in Australia with her husband and 2 daughters. So I'd like to welcome to the Simplifiers Podcast, Leonie Dawson. Hey, Leonie.
Hi, Mary. Thanks for having me here.
I'm glad you're here, and I cannot wait to dive into this conversation. So there is one thing that I know is true that is between you and I. You took a social media sabbatical a few years ago, and I take an annual social media sabbatical every July. And can I just say, every single time I take it, I go, wait, why do I do this social media thing again? Like, why should I come back? Was that the same experience for you as well?
Definitely. So I think it was like 2017. Mm-hmm. And I was really burnt out, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to take a month off social media. And that felt like such a big decision for me.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh God, how am I going to do this? Because you feel like you have to, you feel like you need to be there. You feel like you're going to miss out. And what will happen to your business if you're not on there? And I started the month, and within 2 weeks, I was like, this is too good. I can't go back after 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And so it ended up being about a year and a half. There was I'd occasionally pop in, but most of the time my brain was just so firmly switched off. And it was such a blessing because, one, it just rewired my brain. Mm-hmm. I had such amazing times with my kids because we just started homeschooling. We had 2 amazing years of homeschooling together, and it was just such a blessing. And it also meant that when I did come onto social media, I was really aware of the effect on me and also just how much things had changed within 2 years. Yeah. And how little traction businesses were getting with their social media. So it's like the idea of the frog. You know, if you throw a frog in boiling water, it's going to jump right out. But if you just gently steam it, just warm the water, it'll stay in there because it doesn't notice how hot it's getting.
Yeah, he thinks it's a hot tub. He's like, wow, this is kind of nice. I'm into this.
Yeah. And then dead frog.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like, for everyone who'd stayed in social media, they'd kind of gotten used to, oh, okay, I need to do more and more and more, and I'm getting less and less and less.
Yeah.
And I came back and I was like, what? This ain't working. Like, why would I invest my time here? No, thank you.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, you had been blogging since 2004. You had been on social media since 2007. I'm the same. Like, I started my company back in 2003, and I think we got onto social media, I want to say it was 2008 as well. And I remember back in the day, you post something like 40% of your audience would see it, right? Just one post, right? And you're like, oh, this is brilliant, right? And now what is it? Like 0.1% sees your stuff.
It's ridiculous. Like, I've got 130,000 followers on likes on Facebook, and like a good post will get 1,000 people see it, and that's a good, that's working hard for it. That is less than 1%. That's sad. That is
Right.
so sad.
Right. And yeah, so if an average business has more like 1 to, I don't know, 4,000 likes or followers to their social media channel, just think of the metrics there. 1% of that is nothing. And surely there
Yeah.
is more output and more results you can get in other ways and shapes and form. So earlier this year, you wrote quite a controversial blog post, if I do say so myself, which actually somehow got put onto my desk as well. Like, hey, did you read this thing from Leonie? And, you were talking all about how some major brands and businesses are quitting social media and are just saying no. And of course, if you're listening to this episode, we'll put the link in the show notes for this blog post because I highly recommend you read it. So what prompted you to write that when you did?
The feeling of being the frog that jumped in. And I've kept on like thinking around and around in circles, like, surely there's got to be a different way. And so I'd written it as like a research article for myself. I'm like, what businesses are quitting social media out there? So I went for a good hunt, and I wanted to find out more. And it was fascinating, the ones that had decided to just forego it completely.
Yeah. Like one brand in UK called Lush just said, you know what? No, I don't think we need it, And Lush really is known, if you've never been to their brand, they sell these amazing like bath bombs and soaps and things like that. And they're known for customer experience as well. So when you walk into the store, you're going to talk to at least 4 people from their sales staff, and not in a pushy, weird way. So I think that probably translates into their decision as a brand to say, is this really serving us anymore? Maybe not.
Totally. And they said they said that in their press release. So they were showing down. They just thought, well, this isn't the right thing for our community. This isn't creating the experience that we wanted. And so just come into a store.
Yeah.
Please and thank you.
Yeah. Buy our stuff. Which, again, if you're a small business owner and you're listening to this, you're saying, well, okay, that's well and good, Leonie, but, I'm a teeny tiny person in a small business, in the middle of Dakota. Like, how do I get people to show up at my doorstep or into my online business?
So I did include like small business owners that were doing it as well. So one of my favorites is an author / course creator called Paul Jarvis. And his way of connecting with people is he sends out a newsletter every Sunday. And I just love getting his newsletter. It's just kind of his article, his thoughts about everything from tech to privacy to business to all the things. And it's just so simple. And he is not on social media whatsoever.
Yeah. And, I think that's interesting too, because I remember very distinctly, getting on social media about 2008 and being very much of the mindset of business Mary is over here in this boundary and personal, like real Mary, personal life Mary is over here. So I would segregate my friend circle. I would segregate my pictures that I would share. We would not be sharing family photos with business Mary because it's all business over here. And then somewhere along the way, I made the cognitive choice to blend and let a little bit of personal life Mary, real Mary, seep into business Mary. And that's where I think the lines get blurred for me. And that's where I'm so human. I will fall into the trap of the mindless death scroll and the obsession with social media and feeling not enough with it.
Yeah. And I think that's the time. It's just time to have like an intentional look and go, okay, what doesn't feel great about this?
Yeah.
So for me, like ways to manage that is usually there's certain people who make me feel less than. And so you can, if you don't have to unfriend people, you can just mute them.
Yeah.
Even for 30 days or longer, or permanently not listen to their stuff. That is completely fine. You are 100% allowed to do that. Because the whole point here is for you to feel good within yourself so that you can keep on creating, that you can keep on doing your business and putting yourself out there. I also like to be really intentional when I have social media time. So for my business, I don't do it on my phone. And so I can't be like, I'm on the phone, I'm working. Like,
yes.
Nobody's really working on their phone. Come on now. It's like less than 1% of the time. Otherwise, we're just scrolling and looking at cats and, those kinds of things. Though I am on a Facebook group called Dog Spotting, which is like beyond, because it's just pictures and videos of dogs in the wild.
I love it.
But like, so for me, when I want to do a business, like a work session on Facebook, I want to use it mindfully and intentionally. So I batch all of my content like to go out, and I rehash content from my blog posts because I've written over 2,000 of them. And even if you haven't written 2,000, if you've already written stuff, you can reuse it. Like, people haven't seen it, so you can just reuse it and schedule it in using either Facebook Scheduler or Buffer app, or I use Meet Edgar. And just be like, okay, I've got all my social media created for the next week or next month. Sorted, and even with Edgar, you can recycle the content. So if you've created it once, it just goes back into the queue. And so it's like this forever life cycle of content.
Well, and that's so true. I mean, again, like we were talking about at the beginning of the episode, if 1% or 0.1% is seeing your stuff, the likelihood of them seeing your stuff multiple times is fairly slim. So yeah, I mean, if you've been blogging for a couple of years or posting things, it's likely that even if you only have 30 or 40 blog posts, that no one's seen it, right?
Yeah.
And so I love the idea of batching your work and scheduling a lot of the core anchor posts, if you will, ahead of time. And I think also, it goes right into your workbooks, right? It's like mapping out the year ahead and saying, okay, well, what am I selling for my business in the month of September? Okay, how can I be strategic about what I'm putting out rather than having one of those, oh crap, I didn't post anything today, so I'm just going to post a picture of my food today and be like, oh, it's related to my business, really be intentional about it as well.
Yeah. And also, like, you can, like, I'm not saying to anyone, like, you have to get off social media.
Yeah.
One, you totally can, and you can build your business in other ways. But two, if you are using it, then use it really intentionally, using Pareto's rule, which is 20% of your actions create 80% of your results. Batching it and in really intentional work cycles.
Yeah.
So for me, I use it on my desktop. I have newsfeed eradicator set up so that I actually can't see any of my newsfeed when I've got Facebook open.
It's so genius. Oh my God. Like, seriously, we'll put the link in the show notes for everybody on this, because like literally that's a game changer there.
It's so important, because then like there's just no mindless scroll. I'm like, oh God, okay, I'm here. What am I here for again?
Right.
And it becomes really boring really quick.
Yeah.
I also like have a piece of paper, and like I just keep it super lo-fi, and I have a list of things that I want to do in that social media session. So it's like, okay, I need to connect in these groups, and I do that by like leaving 3 quality comments. Because so often we're like, oh, I need to be here in order to show my presence and blah, blah, blah. But then we actually don't do anything that's actually creating results.
Yep. Yeah. It's all lies. It's all lies that we've created in our heads as rules, that this is how you be good at social media. And I love that idea of like writing down your intentions on a piece of paper. I'm going to do this, this, and this. And then when I'm done with that, get the heck out and actually go do work that is higher yielding tasks that bring you closer to your goals.
Totally. And also, don't do this at your start of your work session. This isn't that important. Do the actual work.
Right. Like picking up the phone, closing a deal, pitching somebody, all that stuff. Right.
Yeah. And just getting your work done as well, creating the thing that you're wanting to create, making sure that the customers you have are beautifully taken care of. Yeah. Think about those things before social media. Then when you go on, and I even have like a list item that says, okay, reply to the people on social media. I am not on social media all day replying to people's comments to my post. That is the dumbest idea under the sun. That's not a good way for me to build a multi-million-dollar company in 10 hours a week. That's not how this works. So I go on. It takes me like maybe 3 minutes to like reply to all the comments. Well, not all of them, but just a few of the comments on Instagram, Facebook. And I don't leave comments on my YouTube videos because YouTube comments are ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then once that that work session is complete, I turn on my self-control app, and that means that I'm banned from social media and gossip websites and everything that I usually use to distract myself for the rest of that work session.
Yeah.
And you can't get around it.
It makes a lot of sense. I mean, it really truly is all about creating those boundaries for yourself. So you go in, you do the very focused, laser focused in work, and then you get the heck out and you move on to other tasks that are on your plate. I mean, again, everybody, did you hear that little bit? She works 10 hours a week and has a multi-million-dollar company. You guys, this is where we have to start reshifting our brains into realizing, hang on, the 10 or 12 hours I spent in Instagram alone this week maybe is not working for me. Maybe there are other places to focus on. So let's shift gears now. We've talked about social media. We've talked about creating boundaries. Now, I know that you like to send lots of people to your, what you call your love letters, which is, in fact, your email list. So why do you think we should focus on growing our email list instead?
It's so important because we actually own the relationship with our email list. And that's because we pay money to the people who hold the mailing list. And even though like it's a service that they do for us, we actually can export it. It's the data, like it's data that we own, which is so important. It means that there's no real kind of gatekeeper between you and your people.
Yeah.
Now, social media, you don't pay for that. And the way that social media makes money is that it gets between you and the people who want to hear from you and then charges you more and more to even speak to these people. They're charging money like afterwards. Mailing list, you just pay an upfront fee. Like I think MailChimp is still free actually up to 5,000. And so incredibly helpful that you can just send messages to them and they'll hear from you. Wow.
Yeah, what an amazing concept. It makes me chuckle because I know in your blog post you've got the oatmeal cartoon that really breaks this down. It says, reaching people on the internet. How it used to be, you know, you've got a website. Come on over. I've got neat stuff over here. And then what actually happens is that you get onto Facebook and you're like, oh, actually follow me over here. And everybody goes into the Facebook building, right? It's easier for us to reach each other over here. And then where we are now, it's like Facebook, doors locked. They can't get out. Hey, hello. I made stuff over here. And then Facebook says, actually, you could reach 1% of this audience if you have a promoted post or you spend X number of dollars in advertising. I mean, like, that's the real shit about it, which is a bummer.
It really is. And here's the thing. I've been saying this for years and years and years to all of my customers, is that algorithms will change and we will have less access to our people, and also the social media companies will rise and fall. Because I was around for Twitter's heyday when I would get 40% of my social media traffic from Twitter. It was basically on par with Facebook. And then at a certain point, it just died up the ass, basically.
Yeah. So what is working for you right now to help you grow your email list? How's that working?
So it's being really intentional. Okay, I'm on social media intentionally. And want to make sure that I'm testing to get the right results for my business. And a lot of that is directing people back to my website. So when you come to my website, there's a lot of calls to action to get onto my mailing list. With a lot of blog posts, like with new blog posts, when they come out, I am directing everyone back to my website and going, hey, this is not the right place. Like social media isn't the right place to write about this because there's so much more information I need to give you. Go over to my website, get on my mailing list. Also, have you been on my mailing list lately? Hey, are you on my mailing list? And then offering things like, one, I've got a whole freebie section of stuff that I've built up over years and years and years, and it's all behind an opt-in wall. So I'm happy to give you all the things under the sun, but we need to like solidify this relationship so I can actually talk to you. So give me your email and I can talk to you.
Which, side note, if you have not gone to Leonie's website, leoniedawson.com, there is a free section. I mean, when she says, oh yeah, there's a few free things, like there is a plethora of free things in your website. Like everything really from coloring book pages that you can print out to sample workbooks and cheat sheets and things like that. I mean, there is just so much on your website. And I mean, I guess that comes over time, right? You've built different opt-ins or freebies and tested them, like you said earlier, to see what gets good response.
Yeah. And webinars. So like I'll bring out a new webinar on a topic. And of course, you've got to be on my mailing list in order to get it.
Right.
So just creating lots of ways to provide more value to people, but they've got to enter into a more committed relationship with me.
And so again, remember, this is totally applicable to you if, say, you're a wedding planner or a graphic designer. You don't have to be an online marketer or an online business, I mean, necessarily. So imagine if you're a wedding planner out there in the world listening to this. I mean, think about where your biggest pain points for your customers are and what kinds of checklists or free, 4-part video series or whatever would actually bring them genuine value. Not solve their problem completely, right? But, at least bringing them a little bit closer to you and understanding, wow, she really knows her stuff and solving parts of whatever is troubling them right now, right?
Yeah, amazing. And like I was looking around for some home renovation stuff and there was a granite, like a bench company.
Yeah.
And they had this amazing, like PDF about what to look for, how to choose. Like it was so helpful for me, like a newbie who has no idea what to do, and gives you like a detail of the process, like of them to come in and install, like timeline, all of those things, because I don't know any of that. And I thought, wow, this company's actually really got it together. And of course I'd go with them rather than anyone else because I feel so taken care of right now.
Yeah.
And that's applicable to all businesses. If I was a wedding planner, I'd be like, you could create like a free mini e-course on creating
choosing your own venue or figuring out what the first steps are on making a budget.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see this really being applicable in so many ways. Being an interior designer, being a doula. I mean, like all the things where you're like, I've never done this before, so help me out,
Yeah, really. Oh, that'd be awesome. Oh my God, we could have so much fun brainstorming for every topic.
Yes. So then how do we make that step towards like actually building and cultivating that email list? You're going to need an email provider. So somebody like MailChimp. And again, those links are in the show notes. What else do people need to get that ball rolling?
Well, having a think about like what you want to offer. So like if you're going to offer a PDF, you'll probably need to host that on your website. Webinar, you might use something like Zoom. I've just started using a platform called Kajabi, Kajabi, and I am just so in love because it's all integrated. So you build your website in there, you've got your mailing list in there as well, and it's got a whole bunch of marketing funnels so you can create webinars and free opt-ins, and it's all templated out with like the emails that you would send to people, and you just go in and add your specific details to it. And I'm really loving that simplification process. And I think more and more businesses are wanting that. They don't want a billion bits of software.
No.
They just want something that can help them for, building an online presence and marketing in that way.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And also, just a reminder out to everybody that's listening right now, if you're like, oh my God, everything that she just said was right over my head. I don't even know where to begin there. Remember that you have access to virtual assistants around the world, that people are super specialized and know this stuff and can hold your hand through it. And a few of those virtual assistants also can be found from the Simplifiers team. So don't forget, we have people that can help you, point you in the right direction. Like you don't have to figure this all out by yourself at all, and nor should you ever.
It's true. And also like Google has all the answers. Like everyone, if you've got a question, I promise you someone's made a YouTube tutorial video about it.
How to create a freebie, how to put it onto MailChimp. Those are the things you just need to Google now and see and test it. Again, the first thing you might build may have no response to it whatsoever, but maybe a couple of things down the line are like, aha, this is what people need when they're trying to have a baby, and this is what they're going to download and connect with. So
it's true. And even test the name. Like I had like a bunch of stuff that I called like, just grab a grab bag of goddess goodies. That was like one of my first opt-ins, and it was like a meditation and an ebook and something else, a video, I think.
Yeah.
And then I thought to myself one day, I'm getting like this amount of results. Why don't I change it to be something that people might actually want? And so I called it the Goddess in 10 Minutes Kit. It's the same stuff. But I just changed the name of it, and like 20 times the amount of people subscribe to that. So
isn't that crazy? I mean, and that's
it is, just change the name.
That's the core of A/B testing. If you've ever heard that terminology before, testing option A with option A's title and option B and with that title, and just see what sticks. I mean, I feel like it's very similar to like throwing spaghetti onto the wall and just seeing what sticks, where's the right, and figuring it out. I mean, when you put a little bit more playful energy like that towards these kinds of things, I think not that it reduces the seriousness, but it certainly helps you kind of put your scientific experiment hat on rather than, oh my God, I have to make this work. And so I'm holding on with an iron fist to clinch it way through. What do you think?
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. And that's the path of business, is that we're all just testing everything.
Yeah.
I don't know the answers to anything. All I know is that I just keep on testing and seeing what works for right now and what works for me and what works for my business.
Yeah.
And that might change according to my mood or the industry in a year's time. But I just have to keep on asking myself, okay, let's just play. Let's see what works.
All right. So, Leonie, here's the real deal. We've got to talk about the elephant in the room. So pause. Wait. How in the world are you working 10 hours a week and you've sold 350,000 plus workbooks around the world? So obviously you didn't just start your business. You're not an overnight success, right? How long ago did you begin?
I started blogging in like 2004. And like the next few years were really just testing like what business model worked for me, what I wanted to offer, what got results. And I started doing online offerings maybe about 2007, 2008.
Yep.
Before that, I was doing kind of in-person offerings. So I sold my art at markets, and I ran retreats and ran women's circles and creative workshops, and continued working in the public service and just kept reducing my hours as my business grew. And then by the time 2009 came around, I was running e-courses and my business was doing really well, and to the point where I was starting to think that maybe, just maybe, I could not go back to work once I had a kid. So I was pregnant in 2009 and had my first kid in 2010, and I didn't stop working for the public service right up until I gave birth to her. So I was down to like 3 hours a week. So I'm pretty risk adverse. Like I built the side hustle on the side and then just reduced my hours over a long period of time.
So wait, did you start building your email list way back when in 2008, 2009 as well?
Yeah.
And
definitely.
Do you feel like you've retained those same people, or have those people dropped off and you've now got new people, or do you feel like they've stayed on?
No, I've got a really like long-term audience. Like it keeps on building.
Yeah.
But people, and even like before I blogged, I was on message boards. And so 2001, 2002, I was on message boards, especially Sark's Marvelous Message Board, which is an author I just adore. And I met some just the most amazing friends through that. That was the beginning of my online world. And I still have people who sign up for my e-courses who knew me back then and just kind of kept on following. Like then I started a blog, they started reading the blog, and then every iteration of my business, they've been along. So I ran a membership site for 9 years, and I still had people, even though it was a yearly renewal, I had people there who were in there since the day I had announced it. They like pre-ordered. I have amazingly loyal people.
It's really interesting to me, and it makes total sense when you put it that way, because really an email list, when you're building a following of people who are just absolute fans of your work, it has a compound effect, right? So you may start off with 50 people on your email list, which turns into 500, which turns into 5,000, because those people love your work, those 1,000 true fans, right? And they also want to tell their girlfriends about it because they're like, oh my God, did you see that workbook? That was so amazing. It really transformed my entire life last year. You should have this or whatever, right? So, and that's the process of compounding that. And again, it makes a lot of sense that you own that email list and not Facebook.
Yeah, really. And also like just to keep on turning up and serving. So, even when I was on message boards, people would know that I was there to share and there to care,
Yeah.
And so I feel really lucky about that. So for me, like I had my daughter and it was like, okay, I'm not going back to work now. I've never had full-time hours. I've never had the opportunity to work 40 hours or 50 or 60 or 80 hours a week in a business. I have not. And a real blessing is that my first kid was a really difficult baby. And by the time, like for the first 9 months, I had to hold her in my arms 24 hours a day, and I would write 1,000-word blog posts on an iPod because iPhones weren't like around then. It was on an iPod. And so one finger while she was breastfeeding constantly for 9 months because she just cried constantly and was awake constantly. And once I got to the point where I was like, actually, I need to actually like leave the house because I am going legitimately insane. The only thing that we could manage, even though my husband was at home with us, because I'd been able to sort of buy him out of his job as well so we could live in really beautiful places around Australia. Even though he was at home with us, my daughter really needed mummy. And it's a shame that my husband doesn't have breasts because maybe it worked out well. As soon as she was out of my arms, she was wailing. She was just a very, very sensitive baby. And that translates to who she is now as this 9-year-old. She is so thoughtful and so sensitive and so awake and so aware and feeling everything. And so by the time like I could leave the house, it was maximum 2 hours a day, and we kind of had to build up to that. And even then I would come home and she would, like my husband would be standing outside in the backyard with a wailing daughter in my arm, in his arms.
Be like, here.
He would be like, oh, honey, okay, did you have a good work session?
And hand over the
We've tried to do the best we could. So it was a blessing.
It sounds like to me also because of the current situation, you really didn't have any other option. You had to get stuff done quickly and efficiently as possible. There was no other and so that really forced you to laser focus in and not piddle around with your time. I think that's it. And I think more and more of us are jumping off the corporate 9-to-5 train because we're like, okay, this doesn't even work in modern reality anymore, especially if I ever want to have kids or have that flexibility and freedom in our life. So more and more of us are becoming small business owners. I'd actually read a study once that said by 2020 in America, 50% of the population will have started a small business. 50%. Incredible, right?
Amazing.
So, and I think that's because more and more of us are just like, no, this isn't working. We need a business that suits our lifestyle. And one thing I want to remind everybody that's listening is that when you do make the leap, right, and you do start your own business, no, you're not going to be an overnight success. I mean, unless you're attached to a Kardashian. But, I think you have to, from day one, really get clear on what it is you want to build. Because we're really good at building golden hamster wheels that serve everybody else, that has huge payroll and cash flow issues, and, at the detriment to ourselves. This is where I would recommend going back to Leonie's work with her business goal workbook. I know that's coming out 2020, My Shining Year of Life or My Shining Year of Biz. workbook to help you work through some of these goal setting things and clarify your vision for the time ahead. With the 2020 workbook, is there anything new in that workbook versus years past that you
my
can
God.
sneak peek us on and tell us about?
Yes. I was really excited. So I came up with this idea. So we always do like a yearly review of the past year because it's so important to look back.
Yep.
And so there's a new section. It's kind of like a game show, and it's like what worked and what didn't. And it's
Yes.
for like every like section in your life. And I don't know, it just makes me laugh every time. And I also just love the format, and I just think people are just going to get so much out of it.
Good. Well, we'll put a link in the show notes for people to check that out as well. So let's circle back to social media. Are we saying that we should deactivate our accounts and, delete it all off of our phone? Or do you feel like we should just simply take periodic social media sabbaticals or something else?
I only know the answer for me.
Yeah.
So the answer for me is I took a really long sabbatical and it was amazing. And I am super cognizant of the fact that I do not want to build my business off the back of social media. What I want to do is harness social media in ways that don't take much of my time in order to bring people back to my mailing list. And so that's what I'm going to do. And if you are struggling with a certain part of your business, or you're not getting results, or you feel like it's taking too much time, then you need to have a good think about, how am I going to rejig this situation to make it work for me and work for my business and work for my lifestyle? Because sitting on our phone 24 hours a day is not building powerful business. That's not scalable. I remember seeing this social media post from this kind of like bropreneur, and you know what they're like, more hustle,
Grind.
And he took a photo of his business class seat, and he was like, yeah, I go to travel on business class twice a year, but this is why, this is what it takes to get here. 80 hours a week. I never see my children. Grind, grind, grind. Hashtag success. And I just thought, that's not success to me. I want to see my children. And also, if you have to work that many hours a week in order to be able to afford a business class ticket, you aren't that smart, mate. There's better ways of doing this because I can afford to do business class whenever I like.
Yeah.
But I don't work like that, and I definitely see my children. And so just throwing more spaghetti at the wall doesn't earn you extra brownie points. Instead, looking at what really works and just doing that is the key to success.
Totally, 100%. I couldn't agree more. You make me chuckle when you're doing your bropreneur accent, because it's enough. Enough, and if that works for you, bless you, that's your thing. But for me, and I think a lot of our listeners were like, no. So let's talk and brainstorm, or tell us what's working for you in other ways to market your business. So we talked about email lists, and we talked about kind of putting better boundaries around social media. What about speaking at events, direct mail, something else? What do you think is other ways that we could do this?
For me, you could definitely do live events. You could definitely do networking. You could definitely do direct mail. You could look at all the options and realize that social media is just one tool in a massive tool belt.
Yep.
For me, I keep things online, so just with online offerings to get people onto my mailing list, and then really treating people well. And in my company, with my VAs, I make sure that they know that we treat everyone as a friend, because they are friends, because I've met so many of my customers, and a lot of my friends are customers as well. And so we want to treat them beautifully, and we want to have a beautiful relationship with them. So we tend to them. And it's like the 1,000 true fans philosophy. If you've got just 1,000 people that you treat amazingly and are such big fans of your work, then you have a business for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
For me, I have more than 1,000 true fans now. And so I'm going to keep on loving them up for the rest of our lives. And if they tell people, their friends, about it, great. I so appreciate that. And of course, I'll offer opportunities for them to tell their friends as well. But I just want to love what I have as well.
Yeah, and I think, again, that gets it back to basics of understanding, simplifying down what the core tenets and what's most important in your business. Treating your customers so well that they just become naturally raving fans of you because they're like, oh my God, it was so amazing. They're so quick and responsive, and the product was high quality, and it's exactly what I expected it to be, if not more. I remember reading about a new product that you launched over the summer. I think it was called Money Manifesting and Multiple streams of income. And this, again, is a true testament to you have built a real devoted following and fans. I think it was something like 2 days after you announced it, you had already 500 signups to this program. I mean, it's just... this, again, it can give hope to those that are listening to this. You're like, okay, I've got 50 people on my email list, Mary. How many years is this going to take me? It might not take you as much as you think, as long as you are really genuinely taking good care of your client list and your email list as well.
Yeah, really. And I think people can feel the magic, like when the magic that you pour into your offering. And so when you're in a great space with what you're offering, people are aligned to that so beautifully.
Yeah, and you're an artist, so you design work, you watercolor, you draw, you paint, all the things. And again, if you're a graphic designer, you know what your art is. But, if you're a wedding planner, there's art to the work that you do there as well. So focus on the art, your secret sauce that you do so well. Stop focusing on social media as much. Put boundaries up, and you might see major breakthroughs. So
big time.
Just a reminder to everybody that's listening, you can find Leonie on our website, leoniedawson.com, and also you can find those links in our show notes for this episode as well. Don't forget, you can pre-order your 2020 My Shining Year Goals workbook, either for life or for your business, and check that out and use that as a tool to help you set yourself up for success in 2020. So a couple of questions before we wrap up, Leonie, that I like to ask everybody, and I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on these. So one, what's one book or blog that you're reading these days that's either inspiring you or maybe even poking holes and challenging your belief system right now?
One book that I just think it should be a textbook for humans is White Fragility, Why It's So Hard for White People to Talk About Racism by Robin DiAngelo. And I keep on thinking about its principles again and again and again, and it really is life-changing. I think it's really so very important for all of us to read, especially people who identify as white.
Brilliant. We'll put the link in the show notes for that book as well. That's actually one I haven't read, but I have heard about it. So yes, great recommendation.
Oh, it's great.
Good. So tell us, who's one person in your network, somebody that you know personally, that you just feel is up to brilliant things that we can shine a spotlight on right here and right now? And who knows, maybe one day we'll have them on the podcast.
Sure. I think Namaste Moore is just glorious. And her husband, Richard, teach about feminine empowerment and presence. And they are just beautiful, beautiful souls doing beautiful work.
Amazing. Okay, we'll put a link for her as well in the show notes so you guys can check her out. So I truly believe gratitude and simplicity go hand in hand. Tell us, what's one thing you're grateful for right here, right now?
We just moved to a property on 2 acres, and I love waking up, hearing all the birds and the chickens that our next door neighbor has, and they're laying eggs, and it's just brilliant.
Amazing. So again, you guys can find her online at leoniedawson.com. You could probably find her on Facebook and other places, but yeah, let's just talk about the website. So go there to find her and connect with her and her team there as well. So my final question for you today is this, Leonie. And again, thank you so much for taking time and really opening up and telling us about this, because it's kind of scary to say, you know what, is this really working for me or not? And make big changes in your business and in your life. So someone somewhere is listening to this episode and she's inspired. She's ready to delete all the apps from her phone. she's feeling crispy around the edges and totally burnt out. And she's ready to take a bit of a social media sabbatical herself. What's one thing you could whisper into her ear right now just to encourage her in this moment?
You can craft your life and your business however you like. You have complete permission to do all of those things.
So go do it.
Yeah, amen.
Yeah. Leonie, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mary.